That period between the year 500 to about the 1500s, right before Christopher Columbus was let loose, that period was called the Dark Ages. It's also called the Middle Ages or the Medieval Times. The medieval times, you could think of the time, with the castles and the wars and gladiators, kings and queens, people still wearing crowns and royal robes and stuff. People had a throne. That was all us. That was actually our history. You'll come to find out. And they say they call it the Dark Ages because there was a lack of history or not much was known about that time. But that's really a lie. There's a lot of recorded history, but that's all our history. But the truth is, it's so-called white people who don't have much of a history during this time, which is why they try to steal our history. And they will say that they were the kings and queens of Europe and that they were the ones in the castles, but they weren't. They were in the caves. And actually, they're not even the true Europeans. We're the true Europeans. We ruled all of Europe, India, we ruled parts of Asia, parts of Africa. We ruled all that. And during that time, they called us the Moors. So a lot of y'all probably know about that. The Ashanti Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and all that stuff. Moors is just another word for black. So it is like saying nigger or negro today. It just means a black person. It's not a religious thing or nothing like that. It just describes a black person. Since we ruled the whole world and our Indian and Latin brothers, they ruled the other side of the world, which is the Americas. And way before Christopher Columbus went across the ocean talking about he discovered a new land, our brothers, Indian and Latin brothers, been discovered that land. And we've been trading goods with our brothers from the Americas. Like we've been trading goods back and forth from Africa to America, from America to Africa, sending ships back and forth. That's how Christopher Columbus knew about the new land to begin with. And that's how he knew how to get there. You think he just went and got up on the boat and knew where he was going? Nah, the ocean too big for that. He knew all that stuff from us. And you'll find out that Christopher Columbus didn't reach the Americas by himself. He took Hebrew people. He took black Jews with him because the Latin and Indian people over in the Americas, they spoke Hebrew. Like I said, the so-called whites, they had a lack of recorded history because they were in the caves. They come from the caves, which are called the Caucasus Mountains, which is in Russia. And that's where they get the name Caucasian from. Caucasian comes from Caucasus and Asia. The Caucasus Mountains are in Russia, and Russia is a country in Asia. So they took Caucasus and combined it with Asia and got Caucasian. So that's where Caucasian come from. They're the caveman. They know it, and that's why they teach in the school. They try to teach that, oh, we evolved from caveman. Nope, just they evolved from caveman. It's funny when it comes to dealing with money, rights, and justice, and anything else of the world, they don't want to be grouped with us. But when you talk about them being a caveman, then they want to be grouped with us. Then they want to say, oh, we are caveman. We are the, man, shut up. Y'all just a caveman, not us. We've been having civilizations and all that. You can go to ancient Egypt. We built the pyramids and on all the walls, the hieroglyphs, and the pictures. You see black people, people with dreads, people with braids. That's all us. So that's one reason why they're jealous of us, that they tried to brainwash us from knowing who we are, where we come from. That's why they try to steal our history and say that they did all this stuff and that we come from the caves. But that's a dang lie. But during the Dark Ages, they were the barbarians, the people from the caves. We've been fighting with them since the beginning of time, since the Bible times to the Dark Ages and even now. But once we started mingling with them and, dealing with them, we trained them up, we taught them things, and they became our slaves. They were slaves actually before us. One thing they ever want you to know. But, just because we are slaves, we didn't treat them and oppress them. For the most part, they lived peaceful with us as slaves. We didn't rape, rob, and murder them just for any reason. You know what I'm saying? They lived with us and they did all right. They did all right to be a caveman. We taught them how to be human. We civilized them. But the scripture told us don't mingle with the other nations because the other nations will get you to do what they do and worship and serve other gods, which that's one of the main acts of wickedness that got us in the place that we got to now. And the Lord didn't want us mixing the holy seed with these people who are less than human, the barbarians, the so-called white people. Because the Lord don't like mixed babies, regardless of what people say and what people think. Now, if a so-called Mexican and a black have a baby, it's still a full-blooded Israelite, just mixed tribes. That's cool. But the Lord didn't want us mixing with these heathen nations. And the heathen nations are these nations here. He didn't want us mixing with the Arab, the white, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Africans, the Greek, the Russians, and Germans, and all them people. That was one of the things that caused our downfall. We talked about the Black Plague, how millions of us fell. So this was the beginning of our downfall. The Black Plague, or the bubonic plague, the Black Death, it killed us. And once they killed us, the barbarians overthrew us. Because by the time we died off and our numbers decreased so much, the barbarians, the so-called white people, knew some things. They overtook us. But the Lord, as we read in Deuteronomy, set them up to overtake us. They start our history. One of many reasons why they hate us. All right, now I'm going to show y'all some pictures during the Dark Ages that y'all probably never seen before. I love these pictures. I forgot about something. All right, so we got the barbarians, the so-called white people, being taught how to bathe. Now we're going to read each of these texts. When white Europeans first encountered the Moors, they thought that the Moorish practicing bathing multiple times a day was insane and frightening. Ablutophobia was a central component of mainstream white European culture into the 19th century. So white people really ain't take baths and shower daily until like the 17th century because they thought it was weird. But we don't see why they thought that in a minute. So we go here, the Romans and the Greeks had public bathhouses. The Danes, which were literal savages, which the so-called white man, savage mean that you pretty much don't have a brain. You just, you go by what you see, and that's about it. You pretty much operate off the instincts of survival, but they would bathe one time a year, regardless of the water temperature. So they bathe one time a year, whether the water was hot, cold, either way it goes out nasty. I'm going to read this one. This is a painting showing black women in Moorish Spain teaching white women how to bathe. When the Euros first encountered the Moors, they thought that the practice of using soap and water to wash your body was African witchcraft. The foam was very frightening to them. So these cavemen and cavewomen were scared of soap. Just seeing something foam up, they thought there was some type of magic, some type of witchcraft. And bathing was not a common practice among the majority of the white European people prior to the settlement of the Moors from Africa. Wherever the Moors were, they introduced a universal bathing policy to help promote wealth and wellness among the white Europeans. Even though the Moors federalized public bathhouses and pool houses for cleanliness, most white Europeans still refused to bathe. Even among white European kings and queens, baths and showers only occurred a few times a year. So, us Moors, so-called black Jews at that time, we established bathhouses and public showers, sort of like the Y. It's a public gym. They got public restrooms and showers. We had that to help these people stay clean because we know that filthiness brings diseases and sicknesses and stuff. We had this to help them clean, to promote wellness, to stay healthy. And we zoom in here, you see the sister here, and they just kind of just sitting around all looking at each other, seeing what each other doing, probably seeing, is it safe to bathe and stuff. And these are full grown women being helped because they don't know how to do it themselves. And look, they all got their head turned. They don't even want to look at what's being cleaned on them. But that shows they got an embarrassing history. And that's why they brainwashed us so we wouldn't know this about them. But, we finding this stuff out. Another point that I was trying to make, the bubonic plague, the so-called Black Plague, the Black Death, that, I believe, came from these so-called cavemen. But that's why the Lord didn't want us mingling with other nations. Because us taking them in and treating them as our own people, bathing them, we put ourselves at risk for exposure. You know how they got us social distancing now to decrease the risk of exposure to corona and whatever other sicknesses out there. We put ourselves at risk teaching them how to bathe. Now, I think the Black Death came from them. I think the Lord ordained that. He was like, okay, y'all gonna mix with these people. Y'all gonna train them up and treat them like your own people. Okay, well, I'm sending this Black Death upon you. They told us up. We're gonna get into these other pictures. We got black Jewish ancestors, they got white slaves. These men look like they're reporting for duty. Because you can see we got our feet kicked up, laid way back. Man, you see over here to the left. We got a black king. This brother fresh to death too. He dripping in all white, probably white silk. He got on gold everywhere. Got on the gold crown. Got diamonds in his ear. You see all the white people around him, which are the barbarians. They just not fly like this brother. Then you got a black knight here. So that's another thing. When it's night outside, it's dark, right? So night is synonymous with dark. A knight is just a dark warrior. It's just a black warrior. That's why they call them knights. So you got here, you got the castle on the hill. You got these brothers in crowns and royal robes and stuff on horseback. This brother got a sword. He probably the hitman. So when you watch these movies about the medieval times, the castles, you got the royal people who in the castle, you got the barbarians who live outside the castle, you got the castle surrounded by water with a drawbridge. Bro, that's us. That was our culture. That was our heritage. That was all us. We the royal people. We can see from these pictures. This is from the 1500s. So right at the end of the Dark Ages. And then we see here, these brothers fresh too. That European style clothing during colonial times, that's what so-called white Europeans wore when they went to the Americas. They get this from us. Then we can see on this picture here, when they came in contact with the Native Indians. One point here, you can see that the Native Indians was dark as us at first, but through all this rape, the gene pool was diluted. But we can see here, this was after the Dark Ages, 1773. After we trained them up, they learned to dress like us. Not as good as us, though, because these brothers look like they ain't designer. But you see they dress like this brother over here, who looked like he giving orders to somebody who dressed less impressively than this brother is. You know, they dress like us, so they get this from us. Told you, these people not creative. Over here, we got a Holy Roman Emperor from Europe. We got another knight here. What was this? Germany. All right, so you can see we the true Europeans, we the true Germans, we the true Swedish, we the true Dutch, we the true British, we the true French. All that is us, because we occupied those lands at those times. And then as we died from the Black Death, so-called white people, the barbarians, they overtook us and took all the land. You see this brother here, this brother playing chess. You know, I told you that the medieval times, the castles, the king and the queen, that was our lifestyle. That was our heritage. So we took our lifestyle and turned it to a game. So you got the king, the queen, the bishop, the priest, the rook, the knight, the dark warriors, the pawns, the foot soldiers, even the deck of cards. We created that. It's pretty much almost the same thing as a chess game. You got the king, the queen, the bishop, the rook, then you got the lower numbers, which would be the pawns. So we created that. I declare war. We did that. It was a royal people. And look at this brother here. This King James. Y'all never knew he was a brother. Hey, you see the goatee and the fro and the wide nose. This is a straight brother. And remember King James, he was a king. It wasn't just one. There was like 5 or 6 of them. They was all kings. And this looks like something out of Wakanda. This the Moors here. Where you think they got the movie Black Panther from? Those you, these people not creative. Everything comes from somewhere. All right, I got this for a screen for y'all if y'all want to screenshot it or whatever. But we're gonna look at some more proof in the Bible that describes us, whether it's physical characteristics or behaviors that they had in the Bible that we still have to this day. So first place we're going to go is Genesis chapter 25 verse 27. It's concerning Jacob. Now we got it established that Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. So the father of the so-called African Americans, Jamaicans, Mexicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans. Genesis chapter 25 verse 27. Esau was a cunning hunter, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in his tents. So what it's saying here that Jacob was a plain man dwelling in his tents, the so-called blacks we would be talking about. Like, man, I'm just minding my business, staying out the way, and I'm ducked off. You know, man, ain't got nothing to do with me. You know how we say, man, minding my own business. Hey, that's how he is. That's how our father Jacob was. So we get it from him. He was too cool. Genesis 41 verse 42. Now, who else wear gold jewelry like blacks and Mexicans do? Gold chains, gold watches, gold earrings. Let's read this verse. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. So they was wearing gold chains back in the Bible days. We have another one. Song of Solomon. Thy cheeks are comely with rows of jewels, and thy neck with chains of gold. We will make the borders of gold with studs of silver. So this woman here, she had gold necklaces on her neck. What women wear more jewelry than the so-called black woman? All right, next we're going to go to Daniel chapter 5, verse 7. You're going to skip part of this verse. Whosoever shall read this writing and shew me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck. And he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. So even then you had a chain of gold around his neck. A lot of us did. Probably all of us back in the Bible days. Now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 49 and verse 8. Judah, thou art he whom thy brothers shall praise. This is pretty much saying that the so-called black people, African Americans, we the trendsetter of the world. However we dress and make music, talk, everybody emulate what we do. And that's what they're saying here in the rest of the verse. Thy shall be in the neck of thine enemies. So Judah being at the neck of thine enemies means Judah will lead the fight against the main enemy of Israel, which is Esau, the so-called white man. So, Israel is the main target of Esau, but amongst the Israelites, the so-called African Americans is public enemy number one for Esau. Not to take away from the sufferings of our Latin and Indian siblings, but notice African Americans are mostly the only Israelites being hanged from trees, killed left to right, being demonized in the media to look like bad people, and just oppressed just all over, job, school, and really everything. They put everybody else above us. But of course, Esau won in this battle right now. But he had way more losses in the past. Under King David and King Solomon, the Edomites, who are the so-called white people, they was under complete servitude to all of Israel. They were our servants. Also, during the Dark Ages, we ruled over them. And we ruled over them for 1,000 years. So they think they doing something because they've been in power for only like 400 to 500 years. We ruled twice as long as them. I guess they forgot. But also, the tribe of Judah is the only tribe that they trying to steal the identity of. That's why they call themselves Jewish. Now, they're not trying to steal the tribe of Benjamin or the tribe of Levi or the tribe of Issachar, just the tribe of Judah. But ironically enough, when Yahweh Shai returned, Yahweh Shai is who y'all call Christ, which is from the tribe of Judah. When he returned, he gonna win the battle for us over Esau. So that's what it means that Judah will be at the neck of thine enemies. But like I said earlier, everything is black and white. Esau versus Judah. We lead in the fight for our brothers against the so-called white man. Exodus. And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thy hand into thy bosom again. He put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out from his bosom, and behold, it was turned again like his other flesh. Leprosy, it means when you turn white. The Lord had a way of putting curses on people and punishing people for disobeying them or for whatever reason. And that curse was that he would take your skin color or he would take your pigment away. And this is all throughout the Bible, Old and New Testament. So I'm going to go to the next scripture. Numbers 12 and 9. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. So the Lord was angry. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. And behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. So Miriam pissed off the Most High, so he gave her leprosy. Now check this out. This is leprosy. Today's society would say, no, this is vitiligo or whatever. That's what they say Michael Jackson had. No, this is leprosy. Anything that was around back in the day is still around today. So this is not vitiligo. The so-called white man, again, changed the name of this condition to say, oh, it's a medical condition. But no, it's a curse. They say it's a medical condition, so we wouldn't associate the process of losing your color with being a curse. So they tried to take a curse and call it a medical condition. But we see this thing all over the place. They changed everything and try to call it what they want to call it. You're going to go to Exodus chapter 30 and verse 8. And when Aaron lighteth the lamps at even, he shall burn incense upon it, perpetual incense before Yahweh throughout your generations. Now, I don't know nobody else except us so-called Negros. When we want to get the mood right or we about to chill, we light the incense. They got incense in all the corner stores in the hood. Because we light them. We light them to this day. So that's part of our behavior that we had then that we also have now. We're going to go to Numbers chapter 6, verse 4. I'm going to skip part of this. In which he separateth himself unto the Lord. He shall be holy and shall let the locks of his head grow. So this dreadlocks right here. And what they try to say today's society. Dreadlocks ghetto. It's nigga-like. It's unprofessional. But the Lord said he shall be holy and he shall let the locks of his hair grow. So having dreadlocks is a holy thing. Don't get it twisted. Now we at Judges chapter 16, verse 13. And Samson said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. So Samson had dreadlocks. Now we're going to jump to Song of Solomon 5 and 11. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. Nowadays, everybody trying to get dreads like us. But who else got black and bushy dreads? All right, so we're going to jump to Ezekiel 8 and 3. And he put forth the form of an hand and took me by a lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven. So the angel picked Ezekiel up by a lock of his hair. So he also had some form of locks or braids. And I'm going to jump slides again. Look at this hair. So I guess this was a statue or something in Jerusalem that, archaeologists found that they would never tell us about. But his brother had dreads, man, in the full goatee and beard. So he wasn't African. Now we about to jump to Numbers 28 and 7. And the drink offering thereof shall be the 4th part of an hin for 1 lamb. In the holy place shalt thou cause a strong wine to be poured unto the Lord for a drink offering. So what us brothers be doing now? If we celebrating, we pouring drink on the floor. We pouring drink on the floor for the dead homies. Hey, we just got a promotion or increase of money. We pouring drink on the floor. We've been doing that even back in the Bible times. But pouring drink on the floor, a sacrificial thing, like an offering. So actually pouring the drink out on the floor for anything, for any other reason, other than pouring it to the Lord, is a form of idol worship. So pouring drink on the floor is a form of idol worship. You sacrificing to that thing, person, anything, or whatever. Now we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 9 and 6. For thou art a stiff-necked people. Pretty much saying that us Israelites, especially the so-called blacks, Mexicans, all of us really, we hard-headed people. If we got our mindset on something, you can't tell us otherwise. That's why Kanye got that one song, Can't Nobody Tell Me Nothing. And we all feel that way. Judges 1, verse 1. Let's get part of this. The children of Israel asked Yahweh, saying, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight them? And Yahweh said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. So we the top warriors. We the first choice warriors. You notice at these stores and at the malls, they got the disabled white veterans talking about, can you help a veteran? You know what I'm saying? But you never see no black veterans out there asking for help. You know why? It's because we died in the war. Because we was the first ones to go up and fight. We the foot soldiers, we the front line, we the top warrior. And the U.S. Army know this. The higher ups, at least, they know this. Matter of fact, the army of Israel, the biggest chunk of that army was the tribe of Judah, the so-called African Americans. And behind us was the so-called Mexicans. They had the second biggest part of the army. And everybody know, so-called blacks and Mexicans, we some fighters. We fight each other and everybody else. We be jacking stuff up. We are natural born warriors. Not just us, the so-called Indians too. When the Spanish and French was coming over here, when they was fighting with the Indians, they was losing. They beat the Indians by tricking them and giving them smallpox, and then they took over America, which is how they took over Europe. We got sick with the Black Death, and we died off. So did the Indians. They got smallpox and died off. Don't get it twisted. They ain't just coming over here whooping on the Indians. They was covered with the bow and arrow. They could throw knives. They could make knives out of rocks. They was over here living with the bears. So what you think? Now we're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 20. And the watchman told, saying, he came even unto them and cometh not again. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu, the son of Nimshi, for he drives furiously. And this was cracking me up because I know I drive furiously. With the so-called blacks and stuff, unlike other races of people, most of the time when we drive fast, we ain't trying to race or have fun. We ain't trying to play no game because we got time for anything except a game. We driving furiously because we got 1,000,001 things to do in a day. And even besides that, we be trying to get stuff done. So that's why we drive furiously. I thought that was funny though. We had Job 30 and 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. So what Job is saying is that my black butt got a fever. Now, we the only ones who talk about ourselves like that. Like, let me get my black butt up in here to work. Let me get my black tail over there. That's how we talk. And that's how we did then. That's how we do now. Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. So Solomon was saying, I'm black but lovely, or black and beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we say now. We make songs about it. We're going to keep going. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. We the only people that go in the sun to get black. Yeah, other people can go in the sun to get dark and dark brown, but they don't get black like we do. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 1. How beautiful are thy feet with shoes, O princess daughter. Thy joints of thy thighs are like jewels. Boy, Solomon know he was slick. The joints of the thigh, or the thigh joint, is the hip, because your thighs attached to the body at the hip joint. So Solomon was pretty much saying, man, your hips are like jewels. Your hips beautiful. So you know he was talking about either a so-called black woman or a so-called Mexican or some kind of Latin woman. You know, them the two most beautiful shaped women on the planet. He wasn't talking about no white woman. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 16. Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with outstretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will spite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. So what the Lord was saying in verse 16, because the so-called black women of Israel, because they walk with their nose up and stuck up and bad attitudes and their necks stretched out, just showing out wherever they go, that he's going to smite them with a scab. So inflict them with an injury to the crown of the head. Now, what goes on at the top of a so-called black woman's head that doesn't go on with any other woman in the world? Hair problems, hair falling out, hair don't grow. That was a curse from the Lord, from the Most High. But now I'm going to jump on to Jeremiah 8 and 21. For the hurt of the daughter of my people, I am hurt. I am black. Astonishment hath taken hold of me. So he's saying, man, my black butt is hurt for my people. I'm sad. Jeremiah was black. We're going to go to Jeremiah 14 and 2. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are blackened to the ground. They, who is Judah, are blackened to the ground. There's clues all over describing us. And this not all of them. These just the ones that stuck out to me that I picked and took note of. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 8. Their visage is blacker than the coal. Visage is just their appearance, what you see when you look at them. Daniel 10 and 6. Now this is the description of Yahweh Shai, who y'all call Christ. His body was like beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. So saying that his feet and his arms was the color of brass, brass is brown, and his voice was like the voice of a multitude. His voice was loud and deep, and it carried. Now this is the genealogy of Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, who y'all call Christ. All the generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations. From David to Yahweh Shai, 14 generations. So from Abraham to David to Christ, this is a lineage, all from the same bloodline. Now take note of that, and we're going to jump back to it. Hebrews, for it's evident that our Lord, which is the Messiah, sprang out of Judah. So the Messiah, Yahweh Shai, is from the tribe of Judah, so as his forefathers, David, he was from the tribe of Judah. Abraham was before the time of Judah, but he's the great-great-grandfather of Judah. So the whole line down, from Abraham to David to Yahweh Shai, the whole lineage, everybody is black. It's the same bloodline. We're going to jump to Matthew 5 and 13. Ye are the salt of the earth. So what does salt do? Salt gives things flavor. Now he's talking to the children of Israel because the whole Bible is about us. It's for us, and every time the Lord talks, he's talking to us. Now we know the so-called blacks and so-called Mexicans, you know, we season our food good. We put salt in everything, you know what I'm saying? Not to make it salty, but to give it flavor. You got anybody that makes something but a so-called blacks, and we make it better. Same with the Mexicans. They can hook some food up. You know what I'm saying? We put the salt in our food. We put the salt in our music. Put the salt in the way we dance, the way we dress, the way we look as a people. We put the salt in sports. If you took all the so-called blacks out of football and out of basketball, then would be the two most boring sports in the world. It'll probably be as boring as golf. You look at boxing. Who the top boxers? The so-called Mexicans, the so-called blacks. Acts 5 and 30. The God of our fathers raised up Yahweh Shai, whom ye slew and hanged on a tree. Now you never hear about this in stories talking about Yahweh Shai, the Messiah. They didn't put this in the Passion of the Christ. They didn't show him getting hung. Now, the people who hung him was the Romans. They sent a decree out to have him hanged because it pleased the crowd. Today, Europe and America is just the new version of Rome. Both of them were white people. Scipio Africanus, the dude who named Africa, he was a Roman general or something like that. Now, the Romans hung Yahweh Shai, and the Americans today are hanging us now. So what does that tell you? Also, only so-called black people get hung. No disrespect, I never see any other people getting hung. I don't see no whites getting hung, no Arabs, no Chinese. Even amongst Israel, I don't even see so-called Mexicans and stuff getting hung. They bet not, but you know what I'm saying? They only hang the so-called black people of Israel. And that's just another curse we got. We die by getting hung. We already got established that they called Simeon nigger back in the Bible times, which means dark man. They called it to us back then, but they call us nigger now for another reason. So that's the so-called white man taking something of old and changing it to what he wanted to be used for. Now, this is the description of Yahweh Shai, who y'all call Christ. Revelations 1 and 13. And in the midst of the seven candlesticks was one, like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. So he had a golden belt at the waist. Now WWE and all that, where do you think they get golden belts from? Superheroes, where do you think they get golden belts from? They ain't come up with that theyself. Verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool. So his head was white because his hair was white. His hairs like wool, as white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burnt in the furnace. And his voice the sound of many waters. He had a deep voice, and it carried. And when I saw him, I fell as dead at his feet. So when John saw Yahweh Shai, he fell at his feet. So his description of him describes him as if he was on the ground. So if you fall on your face, on your knees, you look up, you describe him from the head down. White head, hair like wool, and his feet like fine brass. Because Yahweh Shai was dressed, he probably had on a long sleeve garment. So all he could see really was his feet, especially for him being on the ground. We got regular brass here, and brass, when they take the same thing and they burn it, no matter how you burn it, you're gonna get some form of dark brown. And these down here even darker brown. Look at this brother here. Look at these feet. Probably darker than that. Look at this brother here. It's white, like wool. You can see it even closer right here. This is not the Messiah. It never can or will be. But see, if you got brass here, and they burnt it however they burned it, you get different forms of dark brown and black. So Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, was somewhere one of these colors, but we shall see soon enough. All right, last one for this. This is describing America, Revelation chapter 11 and 7. And their dead bodies, our dead bodies, shall lie in the streets of the great city. Now, when the Bible talks about Egypt or daughter of Babylon or the great city, the great joyous city, Mystery Babylon, it's talking about America. And we got it already established that America is the spiritual Egypt. It's the new Egypt. So they actually use that term in Revelation. The great city, which is called spiritual Egypt. And it's also spiritual Sodom. It's not the original Sodom, the city that the Lord destroyed for everybody being homosexuals, but it's the new spiritual Sodom because they got gay pride, legalized gay marriage and stuff, and also spiritual Egypt because they got the children of Israel in captivity again. That was us just finding more proof in the scriptures describing us and things that we did then that we do now. All right, so we're going to dive into the scriptures to find more proof that we are the people of the Bible and that the Bible is talking to us. So the main reason the entire world hates us because we are the only chosen people of Yahweh, the Most High. And I'm going to put this full screen for y'all in case anybody want to screenshot it or whatever. So if you want to go to Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. So the Lord was telling us, we keep the covenant, we will be a special treasure to him above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So the Most High told Moses to tell this to the children of Israel. He said a kingdom of priests. Anytime you see the word brethren, saints, kinsmen, especially saints, it's talking about the children of Israel because we are all a holy people. So notice the Most High said we will be a special treasure unto him. One of the definitions of peculiar is special, and treasure means precious metal, gems, etc., and that we will be above all people. So we are better than all the other people in the world because the Most High says so. But the world try to say that we the drug dealers, thugs, we're not smart enough, we natural born criminals, we welfare people, and every other bad name they could think of. They think they better than us, especially Esau, which is the so-called whites. But when we tell them, the Messiah black, they go all off topic and say we all created equal in God's eyes. Notice they want to be separate from us when it come to anything else. But this time when we say, oh, the Messiah black, then they want to be grouped with us and say, well, we're all equal. They don't think we equal. They think they better than us. But they some lying hypocrites. And them the same people that say blacks is only 3/5 of a human. But we know now that Esau, the so-called whites, are the caveman. They the Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. By now we learned everything they said is the opposite. They say we monkeys, but they the ones that's born with fur and are born with tails. So they're the ones who are actually 3/5 of a human. And I show that in part 2 of The Truth Shall Set You Free. The Most High said the blacks, Latins, and Indians are better than everybody, and we are a special treasure to him. He said a special treasure. Treasure is already special, but a special treasure means extra, extra, extra special. So all people are not equal in the eyes of the Most High. The Christian church will also tell you this lie and say we all created equal. They obviously never read the Bible like they were supposed to. But the Bible also says all people who are not Israel is counted as the dust on the scale. So the dust on the scale, like when you wipe something dusty with your hand, do you shake the dust off your hand? Pretty much saying the other people are worthless to him. We need to remember who we are, and we need to act like we special and stop trying to do the stuff for the world. That's why the next scripture we're about to read, the Most High said he has not dealt so with any other nation because he's not dealing with nobody else outside of Israel. They got the Pledge of Allegiance. They say one nation under God. That's a lie. There is no nation under God except the nation of Israel. Like I told you, they taking our history because they want to be us. They even took the Pledge of Allegiance and tried to put themselves under God when God is not dealing with nobody else, ever. I can show that in the scriptures. Psalms 147 and 19. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. As for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. Pretty much saying he took his laws and taught us the judgments, the curses and the blessings, and he gave them to Israel. He did not give them to any other nation. So that's plain and simple. And that's not just the law. That's also the covenants, which involves the blessings, the promises. That's only to us. And Deuteronomy 14 and 2 pretty much tell you the same thing. But now we have Psalms 106 and 40. Before we get started there, know that I want to mention. So being the chosen people of the Most High is a great privilege. But with greatness comes great responsibility. The Most High warned us that we would be in the position that we're in today if we didn't follow his commandments. So Psalms 106 and 40. Therefore was the wrath of the Lord kindled against his people. He made the Lord mad, and so much that he harbored his inheritance, that he turned his back on us. And he gave them into the land of the heathen. So he gave us into the hand of all the other nations. They are all considered heathen nations. Gentile nations, and they that hated them ruled over them, especially the so-called white man. They hated us and they ruled over us. The enemies also oppressed them, and they were brought into subjection under their hand. So the so-called white men oppressing us here in all the Americas and all over the world. Many times did he deliver them. So read the book of Judges. This is not our first captivity. We went into captivity probably over 10 times, and each time the Lord saved us, but they provoked him with their counsel. But each time the Lord delivered us from captivity, we would do good, and then we would screw up again. So we provoked the Lord to anger. But nevertheless, he regarded their affliction when he heard their cry. Each time we were suffering, which it started in Egypt, we was crying out to the Lord while we was building the pyramids, and the Lord heard us and remembered his covenant with us, and he redeemed us because of his great mercy. The Lord is wrathful, but he has great mercy, at least to the children of Israel. So this is showing us here that we disobeyed the Lord. Curses got put on us. It's not the first time. Each time he heard us cry out, he redeemed us. And he will redeem us again here in America. So we can go to Isaiah 5 and 13. Therefore, my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge. Pretty much the Most High saying, these people don't know nothing, they got themselves in captivity again. Jeremiah 9 and 16. I will scatter them among all the heathen. He will scatter us among all the Gentile nations, the so-called white man, the Chinese man, the German, the Russian, whom neither they nor their fathers have known. We don't know these people and never did. And he will send a sword after us till he has consumed us. We dropping like flies all over the world. But that's from the Most High. Jeremiah 17 and 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. So it seems like the Most High been mad at us forever. It hasn't been forever, it just seemed like it's forever. That's another curse, that we shall discontinue from thy heritage that he gave us. Our heritage is in the Bible. The heritage is the Bible. So he's saying that we discontinue from living by the Bible. So he gave us to serve our enemies in America, which we never knew. We're about to jump to Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 9. And the Lord said unto me, a conspiracy is found among the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They are turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers. So we started back sinning like our ancestors did, which refused to hear his words and went after strange gods and did idol worship and served them. And the house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant, which I gave to their fathers. So the covenant is a two-part agreement. We do our part, and the Lord will do his part, but we broke our part. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. So, since we broke our covenant with the Lord, he said he's going to bring evil upon us. How Christopher Columbus brought them blankets of smallpox, killed off the Indians, massacred the Indians. How they brought us on the slave ships by the millions and killed us before we got over here. Killed us when we got here, hanging us, still hanging us to this day, shooting us down in the street. That's that evil that we can't escape. And though we cry out to the Lord, he won't listen to us. And it bugged me when people be like, oh, I question the big man up there. You see all this stuff going on, why ain't you doing nothing? Well, brother, why you ain't doing nothing? You see something you don't like or that's wrong, go get a lawyer and push some charges or something. Why you questioning the Lord? We need to be questioning ourselves. Look at all the stuff we do as a people. We need to get ourselves straight and the Lord get himself straight. Which he's straight, it's just us that's crooked. Lamentations chapter 1 verse 3. Judah is gone into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. African Americans, the so-called blacks, and all the other tribes of Israel is gone into captivity or slavery to suffer and to serve. She dwelleth among the heathen, she finds no rest. So we live amongst the people who hate us and those who oppress us, and we have no rest over here. Now we're going to jump down to verse 5. Her adversaries are the chief. Her enemies prosper. Our enemies prosper. The so-called white man, the Chinese man, they rule the planet. For the Lord hath afflicted her for the multitude of her transgressions. Her children are gone into captivity before the enemy. So Judah, which is the her that the Lord was talking about, her children is gone into captivity before the enemy for our transgressions, for us breaking the laws. We're going to jump to Luke chapter 21, verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So Jerusalem, Judah, so-called blacks, African Americans, Haitians, and Jamaicans shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, because we were led away captive to every country in the world. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentile is fulfilled. Now this time means rulership or kingdom. So when somebody says my time, they like saying it's my time to shine, like my time for the spotlight, all eyes on me. It's my time. So that's what this is saying here. Until the time or until the rulership of the Gentiles is fulfilled. So until their time is finished, until their rulership is finished, until their time to shine is finished, then the Lord will redeem us. So all we have to do as a people is get our act together, and the Most High will turn back into us, and that's in the scripture. Now we're going to read Zechariah 1 and 12. Then the angel of Yahweh answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 60 years? So the angel was asking, how long are you not going to have mercy for the children of Israel, since you've been mad all these years? In Zechariah chapter 1 and verse 2 and 3, the Lord hath been sore displeased with your fathers. Therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts, turn ye unto me, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will turn unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. So we turn unto him, and he'll turn unto us. It's not us waiting on him, it's him waiting on us. So we got to get it together. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 through 5. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curses, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations. So when we think about these curses, and think about how they apply to us in every nation that we were driven to, thou shalt return to the Lord thy God, and thou shalt obey his voice according to all that I commanded thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thine soul. Then Yahweh thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion on thee. So when we think about these curses in every nation that we were driven to by the Lord because he drove us there, and when we and our children turn back to the Lord to obey his voice and his commandments with all our heart and soul, he will lift our captivity and have compassion on us, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whether the Lord thy God scatter thee, if any of thy be driven out into the outermost parts of the heaven. From thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee, and Yahweh thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed. So the Lord is going to grab us from all over the planet and put us back in our land. And thou shalt possess it, and he will do to thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. So how he blessed Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob back in the day, he's going to bless us even greater. But we got to turn back to him first. And all this will take place after he lifts our captivity. And how would our captivity be lifted? Our captivity being lifted is salvation, because salvation is only for Israel. I know a lot of people not going to like that I say that. That's a touchy, sensitive topic for people for some reason. So when the Lord returns, he's going to judge America for torturing the children of Israel, which is us. And he's going to lift us, redeem us of our captivity. So we're going to be free. We're not going to be oppressed. We're not going to be tortured. We're not going to be plundered. All this bad stuff that's been happening to us, that's not going to happen no more. That's what our salvation is. So we're going to jump to 2 Chronicles 6 and 36. If they sin against thee, for there is no man which sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them before their enemies, and they carry them away captives into a land far off, yet if they bethink themselves in a land whither they are carried captive, and turn and pray unto thee in the land of their captivity. So this is saying when we sin and when we get taken captive because we broke the law, and we get taken to a faraway land, far or close, when we think of ourselves in our captivity and we turn to the Lord saying we have sinned, we have done amiss thing and dealt wickedly. If they return to thee with all their heart and all their soul in the land of their captivity, whether thee have carried them captive, and pray toward their land, which thou gavest to their fathers, and toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house which I have built for my name, then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people who sin against thee. So when we return with all our heart in the land of our captivity, which is the Americas, where we were taken captive, and when we pray toward the east, our land is towards the east. So, you got Islam, they pray toward the east. Where do you think they get that from? They get it from the Bible. Don't eat pork, they get that from the Bible. All right, so back on track. When we pray toward the east, which is where our city is at, he's telling the Lord to hear our prayers and forgive us, because nobody sinneth not. Luke chapter 1, verse 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel. He hath visited and redeemed his people, and have raised up a horn of salvation for us. The God of Israel has raised up a horn of salvation for us. Salvation for us, which is Israel. That we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. That's why I said salvation is only for the Israelites, because we the only one who needs saving. Like, who else on the planet needs saving? Like, especially us so-called blacks, we getting killed more and more every day. We get murdered probably by the 50s every day. If this continued for years and years, we would be extinct off the planet. They pretty much wiped off the Native American Indians, so they need saving too. Those blacks and Indians, we need saving. It says that we should be saved from our enemies, from the hand of those that hate us. We need to be saved from them because they hate us. That he will grant unto us that we, being delivered or saved out of the hand of our enemies might serve him without fear. Now we go to Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 18. In those days, the house of Judah, the so-called blacks, African Americans, Jamaicans, and Haitians, shall walk with the house of Israel, the so-called Mexicans, Latinos, and Indians, and they shall come together out of the land of the north. The land of the north. That's North America. To the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. So we're going to be taking all of the Americas, dropped off in the land of our fathers. All right, we're going to go to Jeremiah 16:14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought the children of Israel from the land of the north. All right, so the children of Israel, they were in Egypt, and the Lord brought them out of there. The children of Israel, again, are now in the land of the north, which is North America, because North America is the new Egypt. And, that was such a miraculous thing that in the ancient times, when they talked about the Most High Yahweh, they described him as, oh, the Lord that brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. Because when they heard about that, the whole world heard about that. The whole world feared us after that. You can read that in the book of Joshua. That's one of my favorite books. But it says that the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them. And I will bring them again into the land I have given their fathers. So he brought us out of Egypt and gave us to the land of our fathers. He's going to bring us out of Egypt again and bring us into the land of our fathers again. Just a repeat of history. They say history repeats itself. What it's saying here, that the world will no longer describe the Most High as him who brought the children out of the land of Israel, because it say it shall no more be said. But the new talk of the town gonna be, oh, the Lord that brought the children of Israel out of the land of the north, out of the land of North America. Man, that's crazy. So a few things stand out when the Most High talks about salvation of the Israelites. There's a few things he says that involve salvation. So there's a few things that's part of the salvation package. The main things are we'll have rest from our enemies, we'll be at peace, because he'll save us from those who oppress us, those who hate us, and everybody that rule over us. Also, that he will put us back in the land that was given to our fathers, because everybody else on the planet is in their own land. The Chinese and the Japanese people in their own land. So is all the other Asian people. The Russians in their own land. The Africans in their own land. So-called white people in their own land and everybody else's land that they invaded. The so-called blacks, we the only people that's not in our land. We was in Israel, which is in Africa, Northeast Africa. We was kicked out of there, so we fled to West Africa. And then we was kidnapped from West Africa. So we the only people on the planet that's like pilgrims, that's like strangers. So the Lord's going to put us back in our own land. All right, so the greatest reason of all why all the nations hate us, because salvation is only for the Israelites. Now, we've been saying that, but I'm going to do a separate video on that. But there's already tons of videos from all the brothers that's bringing this truth out. You can find it all over YouTube, but I'm going to do it too. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 8 through 11. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, the day he returns, judgment day, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and I will burst thy bonds. And strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. The strangers will no longer enslave us and make us serve them, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore, fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, save Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. The Lord will save thee, will only save Israel from the land of their captivity. And Jacob, which is Israel, shall return to the promised land, which is Israel, and shall be in rest and be quiet. So we're going to be at rest, we're going to be at peace, and going to be no drama. It's not going to be no BS, and we're going to be quiet. And none shall make them afraid. We won't be afraid because we're going to have assurance of life. We won't be confused, not knowing where to go. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee, to save Israel. Though I make a full end of all nations, whether I scatter thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee. So the nations where the Most High scattered us, the Lord will put an end to all those nations. That's why salvation is only for Israel. The so-called white people in the Christian church, they give you a false reality of Judgment Day. and what the last day is about. It's about God's people, not anybody, but the people of the Lord of the bloodline of Israel. Judgment Day is all about us. It's all about saving us. But he will not make a full end of D, of us. Why? Because he's saving us. He's going to put all these other nations to rest, but he's going to save us. But I will correct thee in measure and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. So the Lord was saying, I'm not going to leave y'all unpunished. Yeah, I put y'all through slavery and all this stuff, but it was to correct you. It was to make you suffer and wonder, why are we going through this? And then we pick up this Bible and we read, they come back to us. We knew this all along. We just forgot it. That's why those who get this, when they click in their mind, they just in awe. Because it's like they knew this the whole time. It's like they remember something that they long forgot. Because it's in our DNA. Our ancestors lived by this. I'm going to skip part of this verse. John 4:22. You know not what you worship. We know what we worship. For salvation is of the Jews. Salvation is of the Jews. Salvation is for the Jews. Salvation is only for Israel. Jeremiah 3:23. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of the mountains. So what is this hill and this mountains referring to? It says that the hills and the mountains hope for salvation in vain. Hills and mountains in the Bible describes people. So when you got a kingdom sits high above all other people. While the hills, which sits lower than the mountain, people who don't sit so high up. So like your regular citizens and stuff. So the king and the kingdom would be on the mountain and the regular lowly people would be the hills. It says that the mountains and the hills, truly in vain salvation is hoped for. So they hope for salvation in vain, saying that salvation is only for Israel. But the rest of the verse, truly in the Lord our God is the salvation of Israel. In vain, these people, small and great, hope in salvation, but truly in Yahweh, our God, salvation is of Israel. It's for Israel. But I'll make a whole separate video for that, where I can put way more scriptures up. So conclusion, the truth shall set you free. We're going to end it the way we started it. Then Yahweh Shai said to the Jews which believed him. The Jews which believed him is us that's reading the Bible. Those who believe him with the ear, or us that believes on Yahweh Shai with our eye from reading these words that we about to read now. If we continue in his word, which is the Bible, the words that he spake, then ye are my disciples indeed. So we his disciples for believing in his word. Rather we heard him speak it, or we see him speak it by the words in the Bible. And ye shall know the truth. If we continue with his word, we will know the truth. What truth is he talking about? Every truth out there that's to be known. And the truth shall make you free. Matthew 10:26. Fear them not therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. So all the stuff that they tried to cover up from us is being revealed during these end times. And everything that's hidden is coming into the light, mainly about who we are and who they are. And then look back at the top, the truth shall set you free. This stuff being revealed during this time that they kept hidden for so long is setting us free. And us knowing the truth has already lifted our captivity. Well, it's halfway lifted our captivity. It lifted the captivity of our mind. But we need to turn back to Yahweh, the Most High, so he can lift us of our physical captivity and remove that from us. But I'm going to read off my slide. All right, y'all see the beginning of why the nations hate us. But as you get deeper into the truth, things get deeper. Like we covered some interesting stuff here, but this is just the surface level of stuff. But they did not ever want us to come back into our God. They didn't want us to turn back to Yahweh. Because when we did that as a whole, we would come back into power. And when we in power, like how today you got to shift the power, this person the president, this person the president, oh, this country's in power, now this country on top for whatever reason. When we in power, it can't be taken from us. But they don't want that because once we in power, they can never be on top again. But this is why they tried to erase all of our history and stood up for themselves. They even tried to steal our history of the Bible and say the Bible is all about them. I'm going to show that soon. But we're going to read Psalms 83, 1-7. And we're going to show that all the nations of the world came against us. I'm going to skip part of this. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. A tumult is a loud noise. And they that hate us have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Now we're gonna look at this word crafty. Crafty, tricky, sly, devious. So they have taken a sneaky counsel against us. They have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." Now, when I said that every nation, not just the Africans or the whites, has something to do with our captivity, this is the verse that says it here, that they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and they said, "Let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." So they want to cut us off from being a people because they wanted to rule over us, but they couldn't. It was impossible to do. And so they figure if they cut us off from being a nation by killing us, enslaving us, moving us out of our land, brainwashing us, oppressing us, distracting us with all this BS that's in entertainment and media and social media and on the internet, that our name Israel will be remembered no more. Where they consulted together with one consent. So they all came together with this goal in common. They are confederate against the Confederate States. You know what I'm saying? The tabernacles of Edom. Edom is Esau, the so-called white man. So he's first on this list. And the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, they second on the list. They took us into captivity way before the so-called white people did. Of Moab, the Chinese, the Hagarenes, Jebel, the Japanese, and the Amalekites. These are fake Jewish people today. So all these people, and people, as we read down more, they came together with one consent, took a tricky counsel against us, and said, "Let us cut them off so they don't remember themselves." Also with Psalms 83, if you think about the UN, the United Nations, that's that crafty council that was formed against Israel. They confederate against us. They all in on a little secret they won't tell us about. And if you think about it, they got a spokesperson, a leader, a representative for every nationality or race of people on the planet. But there's no African American leader or spokesperson. There's no Mexican leader or spokesperson. There's no Native American or Indian leader or spokesperson. So there's nobody to represent us at those meetings. And then they hold secret meetings. So what you think they talking about? They talking about how they can come up against us and keep us in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the next plan that we're gonna do for the children of Israel? And then you can see with this picture, like, what y'all really doing? Like, everybody touching the ball? Like, what y'all doing? That's that crafty counsel. The so-called whites, they know they are all a lie, and that's why they call themselves Israelis and not Israelites. Because if you are the chosen people of God, why don't you just call yourself Israelites? Why you change it to Israelis? Because they know they're not the true people. If we look here, Israeli or lie, Israelite, the lie of Israel, the biggest lie in the world. They are not the children of Israel. And we are the Israelites, Israelites, or Light. We are the light of Israel and the light of the world. And the Lord says that in the scripture. Ye, who is Israel, are the light of the world, a city that is set on the hill and cannot be hid. So we shine bright on the hill. You cannot help but notice us. Isaiah 10 and 17. The light of Israel, see, shall be a fire, and his Holy One for a flame. So it's saying that we are fire, and our fire is through the Most High Yahweh. He lights us up. But that's why they call themselves Jewish. They wish they were Jews. They try to be like the Jews, but are not. That's where Jewish come from. Ish means kind of like. They're kind of like a Jew, but not the Jew. Like if I say, you acting girl-ish. You acting like a girl, but you're not a girl. You know what I'm saying? You say 4:30-ish. Around 4:30, but not 4:30. But also in Numbers 1 and 18, it tells you they declared their genealogy or where they come from after their families by the house of their fathers. So you are what your father is, not the other way around. So if your father is an Israelite, even though you have a white mother or a Chinese mother, you're an Israelite. Father's an Israelite, you're an Israelite. It's not the other way around. That's why genealogy in the Bible, it lists the fathers. It doesn't list the mothers. But in time, the Most High will restore everything to correct order. And Matthew 20 and 16 says, so the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. For many be called, but few chosen. So we last in everything, but we're going to be first. That's why I say the Lord's going to restore everything to correct order. Because back in the ancient times, we were first. So we the ones that jacked up and reversed everything. But the Lord's going to restore that. But last thing I want to say to us Israelites, if you've seen my other video, The True Name of God and Why It Matters, we need to stop using God, Jesus, Jehovah, and Lord. And we also need to stop using black, Mexican, African American, Jamaican, Haitian, because those are the titles that Esau gave us, the people in power. The Lord named us what He wanted us to be called. So His name is Yahweh. The Son name is Yahweh Shai. If you use God, you can say God of Israel, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because that's in the scriptures. But Esau gave us black, African American, and redskin, where they actually the redskins. So we need to put all that behind us and look forward, which is this word. But if you're going to describe yourself, say I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, Israelite from the tribe of Asher or something. Or if you don't want to say that, you can just say I'm a Hebrew or I'm an Israelite, to keep it short. Stay tuned. I got some stuff I want to show y'all.